Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, Nick. Thanks for having me, man. This is great. Good to be here, and looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris is the president of Atlas Marketing, runs his own marketing business. Chris, could you give us a rundown of what you do and how you got to be where you are now?
Sure. Atlas Marketing, we tell stories for people who build things. That's really what we do, and we use those stories to help people make decisions. So we really focus on the customers of our clients and really helping them to decide, hey, I want to work with this company, whether it's a contractor or a manufacturer or an industrial company. But that's who we are. And you asked how I got here. I started the company in 2008 after I was at a couple other large agencies in Pittsburgh and just got tired of the travel. And so started my own firm and been at it for going on 12 years now. So
I'm sure in the last 12 years, you've seen a lot of shifts in marketing, right? Like with social media and the internet, there's had to been major shifts, right?
Oh God, yeah, and it changes almost daily. Like you said, social media to let's be honest, all of us are marketing to Google, and so what that has brought about, not only for us as a company, but also for our clients, has changed a lot, and just how you get the story out has changed so much as well. So it's definitely been constantly learning, constantly trying to stay up to speed with things, and you go from there.
I know one of the things we like to focus on the show is we like to focus on the fact of how do entrepreneurs get started. So here you are working at different agencies. You get the idea that you can basically go out and do it yourself. I'm guessing that you did something similar to what happened with myself. You worked in the same field for so long that you knew you were really good at it. And you figured, hey, if I'm going to do this forever, I might as well do it for myself. Is that kind of the thought behind there?
Absolutely. I was fortunate. I was working in an agency, and I had a client at the time come to me and say, hey, if you ever want to go out on your own, we'll come with you. And I was like, oh, okay. But I had thought about it, but I came home, talked to my wife, and she said, just make sure he's truthful. And turns out he was still a very good friend of mine and a mentor. And from there, kind of started out on a Monday, and by Friday had a contract, and I've been going ever since. But yeah, it for me, it got to the point where you're absolutely right. I was being asked to do a lot of different things, and at the agency that I was at the time, I was recruited to join there, and they brought me in to run some accounts and do some of the client work, but things changed, and so they wanted me to do business development. And I just thought, you know what, if I'm going to do business development, I'm going to do it for myself. I'm not going to do it for somebody else. So that's how I kind of made that shift as well, and having a client who was willing to kind of come along with me, so that really helped. But yeah, it was I'm glad I did it. Certainly excited about the chance 12 years in, and we keep growing. We've got 2 offices, 7 people, looking to add more. So it's been a good ride, and I hope to have a lot more years.
What were the challenges in the beginning that were maybe unforeseen, that you didn't see coming?
Well, I started the business in 2008, so I have to admit, I did not see the recession coming because I had my head down and was working. That was definitely the first one, but it was literally like jumping, doing a belly flop into the deep end. But it was a good learning experience because it forced me to look at a lot of different things rather than just doing the client work that I had or that we had at the time, because I had another employee. But it was also looking at, the bigger impact on the business, how much of the economy has an impact, especially on a marketing agency, that and sales. I never really considered myself a salesman. But now, you know, as you can say too, you know, no matter if you're a business owner, you're in sales, whether you like it or not. And that was definitely the biggest challenge that I saw that I didn't anticipate.
And then was there anything in your business that maybe you started to do that you didn't think you were going to do? Like maybe you were like, okay, this is how we do the marketing. This is the agency I want to run. But was there anything that you saw an opportunity in maybe a different sector that you kind of took on as well?
What yes and no. I think you know, a lot of our clients are in the construction and manufacturing world, and we've stayed with them since day one. We do have some opportunities currently that are more focused on more like the publishing world and podcasting and some of the things that you and Jason are doing here. So that's been something that's kind of come not at the beginning, but more now as marketing and the industry has evolved. It's kind of opened up some other doors that I didn't anticipate.
What did you see back in 2008 that maybe is very similar to what we're going through right now?
It's funny. I just had a lunch appointment and we talked about the exact same thing. The one, a little bit of fear, a little bit of the unknown. But I think the big similarities are that a lot of companies are holding off to get through this pandemic, and a lot of that was happening back in the recession as well in 09 and 10. But the differences I see right now are that people are recognizing that it's not going to be as long lasting, and people are much more open to investing in their companies now versus when they were in 09 and 10. People at that time were more focused on, you know, let's just keep cash on hand. Let's be really focusing on our profits and reduce as much expenses as possible. And now I think people are still in that mindset, but they're also more open to investing.
What dangers do you think there are in a company holding back?
Well, I think the biggest danger is that your competition is going to pass you. You know, I mean, if companies are holding and saying, oh, we're just going to wait until this pandemic's over, well, that could be years. I mean, I read an article, and it's not apples to apples comparison, but you know, when the polio vaccine came out, it took them 40 years to develop the polio vaccine. You know, if it takes us that long to get the COVID vaccine, we're looking at a whole different world, completely different. So I think the aspect of companies holding back now are going to force their competition to come ahead. I see especially a lot of our clients are investing not only in their marketing and telling their stories, but they're also investing in platforms to help tell that story, whether it's social media, whether it's marketing automation, whether it's services, those type of things. So I think more and more now people are really looking at it as, okay, we've got a little bit of a downtime. Let's take advantage of it and invest into that so that there's more of an outcome at the end versus waiting for our competition and being behind them.
What's your clients seeing in the way of hiring right now during what's going on? You know, I was just gonna say, I think there's maybe an idea out there that there's a lot of good people to hire because there's a lot of jobs that just laid off, you know, right from the beginning. Then people collect unemployment. Maybe now it's like people are joining the workforce again. Are your clients seeing definitely some good talent out there, or what are they seeing in those aspects?
I can say definitively for the construction markets and our construction clients, every single one across the board is on a hiring push. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. A lot of that is because you're right. There's in the construction industry, everybody talks about having hands, good hands. Is he a good hand? Is she a good hand? So right now there's a lot of good hands available. So they're able to pull people in based on experience because they were laid off. Manufacturing, not so much, simply because I think from the recession in 09 and 10 and into today, manufacturers are a little bit more automated than they were in the past. And so they're able to do a little bit more with a little less. So that's what we're seeing on that side. And the same thing with the industrial clients. They're more focused on, okay, let's just do what we have to do with who we have and go from there.
And I think you make a good point too, that certain industries may need a lot of people. Certain industries right now, maybe, they don't have as much help on as they need. I think that's what we're seeing in different industries is sometimes it's, some industries have actually had a spike in what's going on. I would think with the builders and constructions, they're seeing a spike actually. Seems like people aren't spending money on vacations, so maybe they're building extra things at their homes. Or can you talk on that too? Like, are your clients seeing that right now?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I had a conversation yesterday with one of our clients who's in Mississippi, and they cover Mississippi and Alabama, and they've seen a big push on the commercial side because now not only are banks more interested in investing and funding more projects, but owners are looking at it as okay, we feel we're through this, the worst of what's coming. Now let's start moving because we've got employees we've got to house, we've got products that we have to house, those type of things. And also too, you mentioned people being at home. I think a lot of people on the home building side are also recognizing, because they've been stuck in their homes for 6 months. God, I can't stand looking at that wall anymore. We need to, let's get rid of that and do this. I mean, I know my wife and I, we just got done and did we had a contractor come in, a great contractor, friend of mine, Jeff McQueen with McQueen Building Company. They did a tremendous job, redid our bathroom and did a really good job with that. And, to the point where we now are like, okay, what's the next project? Because it went so well. So I think a lot of people are doing that as well on the personal side.
And I also think that this economy is really affecting the commodities that are out there too, right? Like wood is pretty much almost doubled in price, right?
Yes, it has. In the materials aspect of the job, I know one of our contractors that we work with out in the central part of the state, they came back and said that they had to actually rebid projects that were on hold because the material costs at the prior to March, I think it was March 24th, I might be wrong, March 12th, I forget the date, but prior to that, it was considerably lower. But now when they come back after the state mandated work from home and hold on construction, it escalated, some of them up 60-70%. So that's been a big challenge for the industry as well, how to manage that. And fortunately, owners are recognizing that, and as well as architects and developers and the people and the banks as well, because I mean, you can't hold somebody to a cost that was 6 months or even a year ago. That's a challenge.
What are you seeing as far as like the clients that you have, as far as spending the same marketing dollars as they were spending pre-COVID? Like, would you just suggest that even somebody could do something as bold as double down and really spend now, like you were talking about the competition being able to creep up on you if you stall? But what if you took the other approach and you decided, hey, I'm going to double down. We're like you were talking about before, taking that money and really investing in your business. Would you think that's a wise decision to do right now?
I think it is. Depending on the business, admittedly, like if you're a restaurant, for example, for like you, letting people know that you're there and you're open and, order takeout, we're even open for outside seating, those type of things. That's going to be beneficial for that industry. Construction and manufacturing, what we saw was our clients actually came to us and said, okay, we recognize that we're not going to be advertising as much or doing as much PR or as much digital ads. What do you suggest we do? So we ended up focusing, we kind of reallocated the budgets and looked at social media and how can we get the message out, because the spike on social media went through the roof starting in April and May because everybody was at home. That became the water cooler. So what we started to do and what we saw was our clients really wanted to focus heavily on telling everybody we're working, we're doing these things, we're doing it in a safe manner, we're taking care of our employees and those type of things. And it became more of a relationship building element versus sales. And the same thing on like the restaurant side, reminding people that that you're here, and helping people make that decision, like I said earlier, that instead of going to, if I want to get a slice of pizza, I want to go here versus going to Subway, like help the community be a part of this and those type of things. So I think, that's what we saw from our clients, and that's what I would tell people in your industry in particular is, yes, you can double down, and that's how I would double down. I wouldn't just start throwing money at it and say, call us. I would talk. There's a bunch of different messages to talk about there.
I know the way we approached it was before COVID, it was almost like we marketed for what people wanted. That was the way we marketed. What do they want? Now it's switched to what do they need? They need to know that they can have a safe place to come and pick up their food, or they need to know that they can have a safe place to get their food delivered. This is how we're doing it. And almost like a public service announcement that, sure, we're wearing masks and gloves, and this is the way that they can get the product. But a lot of the marketing switched to like almost a need-based marketing approach is how we definitely have switched our gears.
Yeah. And I like the way you said that, need versus want. And I agree with you. You said it much more succinctly than I did. But I couldn't agree more, and part of that need is letting people know that you're wearing masks, you're washing hands, you're cleaning, all
right.
The stuff that you've done before that just wasn't really in the spotlight because it was just an assumption.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with that. I think that's right. I think need versus want is a great way to sum it up.
And I know for us, like, you're absolutely right. We did a lot of those things before. The biggest changes was really taking tables away was probably the biggest change, but people wanted to see that too. We put partitions up, so we'd walk people through the stores with a video. Hey, this is where the partitions are. And then it's funny when, like anything in our world today, everything becomes political. So you've got people who are saying, I can't believe you put partitions up and, and everything else. And it's just, I don't know. There's always both people on both sides of the fence, but I think at the end of the day, I think we owe it to the public to try and keep people safe. And really believe what people are saying, because nobody really knows where we're at. Like when you're talking about a vaccine, could it be, 6 weeks from now, 6 months from now, 6 years from now? Like I get what you're saying. This isn't exactly polio, but 40 years from now for a vaccine, like nobody knows, right? Like,
yeah. And if somebody can sit there and say definitively, and I'm trying to walk that line of being non-political, I have to admit, but if somebody is saying that they know definitively when a vaccine's coming out, I got a bridge to sell you too, type of thing.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine the challenges that are being faced for you as not only as a business owner, but in the restaurant industry. I know friends of ours that, we've tried to get together on several occasions. They're like, we're not coming out of our house,
Yeah.
And so I'm certain that there's that that approach as well. So you've got so many varying degrees and extremes in there too.
Right. And we see the other end of it too is, we have a lot of employees. We have close to 200 employees. So, and they feel the same way. There are certain employees that just, they really don't care about this. It's whatever. They just show up for work and work. And then there's other employees that maybe they take care of their grandma, or maybe they live with older relatives or something, or somebody with, a handicap. And they're really nervous about the whole situation. So, as employers, I think there's a certain responsibility to make sure that you're doing the right thing too, that you're providing a safe workplace. And, it's frustrating when, maybe as a restaurateur, when I'm watching the news and you start to see other places that just have no regard for it, they just fill the place. But there's a certain point of me that gets that too, because everybody's financial situations are different. It's a little easier if I'm in a good situation to say, yeah, we need to be completely safe. And there may be somebody that, they're moving every bank account around and trying to really, their cash flow is really tight and they need the customers or they're not going to survive. So I guess there's a lot of different sides of what's going on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a friend of mine who's in the restaurant business, and we were talking about things too. And he said, can you imagine if and again, not trying to get political, but could you imagine if the government or the state came to me, as the president of Atlas Marketing, and said, you can only work at 50% capacity? And
Yep.
When he said that to me, it was like, whoa, that's an eye opener. And so I feel for anyone that's in the restaurant business because of the fact that your hands are literally tied. And the fact that, like you said, you've got 200 employees, you've got people that you're trying to not only take care of because they work for you, but you've also got your customers, you've got the community that it's a really, really challenging issue. But I think, at least in Pennsylvania alone, from what I've seen, people are very accommodating. I don't see too many people going into restaurants without masks on. I don't see too many people, even going into like a convenience store. There's not many people that aren't following the rules and doing the things that are going to help, because I think a lot of people recognize that if you don't, you're not only hurting yourself, but you're hurting so many other people. And, that aspect of, from the business perspective, like you said, you got to look out for your employees and those type of things. I've been fortunate because our business, even though we have 2 offices, we were set up from day one to be mobile. Mm. And a lot of that was because I knew I was going to be traveling and doing things and moving around, so we can, not only are we getting things set up on our, on iPads or iPhones or laptops or whatever it is, but, we've been working in that mentality and that world for so long that when we didn't even hit it, there was no hitch. It was, the only thing that really changed was now we've got more video chats versus telephone calls and those type of things. So for my business, it really hasn't had much of an impact in terms of how we operate. Thankfully, thankfully. So.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. There's a lot of different ways to look at what's going on. I think what I liked the most that you said was going back a little bit was how you're saying that, don't stall right now. It don't hold, because I think that's what there's 2 trains of thought, I guess. One would be to really just try and go full steam, make sure you stay alive. I think that was maybe the reaction right at the beginning for a lot of people. But then there's a certain point where it's like, well, maybe I'm going to hold off and try to sustain and make sure we come out and kind of float through this thing. And, there's definitely dangers in there. And I think that's where, as a business owner, you got to be real cautious, because most business owners, I think, took a lot of risks to get where they're at, and then they find themselves. And I think that's what's been tricky for me is, man, I've taken so many risks to be where I'm at. And then, we decided not to open a new store in the middle of this. We had a deal we would have been open in April. And I had a little little out that I could get out, and I still, I lost some money over it, but at the same time, I just couldn't open our biggest restaurant and sign the biggest lease that we were going to have with knowing what we're going through. And there was, I kind of beat myself up over that because I'm like, well, did I not take the right risk? And I just felt like maybe I made a decision. I didn't make a right one. I didn't make a wrong one. I just made a decision. But now as this thing goes on farther, I think there's certain things that it's like, oh, well, you can't wait. We weren't open for so long. Even when it was 25%, we just kind of said, okay, we're going to stay at 0 or 50. And then when they opened up to 50, we went 25 one week and then 50 the next. And now we're like, well, maybe we should have been open this whole time at 25%. But then the other part of it is, things were different 2 months ago. We had, about 20 employees that all thought they had COVID at once. Like, how are you going to keep all the stores open when you think, a sixth of your, or, a tenth of your employees have it? Like, how do you, keep going? So, like, I guess it's ever changing is kind of my point,
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think from making a decision like you did to looking at, what's the on-hand cash versus liquidity and all the fun things that come out of the B schools world. But the other side of it is I think, just be smart. Like, for me, my trajectory or my thinking is, can I sleep at night? Like, am I getting a good night's sleep? And I know it sounds so simple, but literally, I mean, there's like, for years, I just thought it was the norm where every business owner was, sleeping 2 or 3 hours a night. And I quickly realized that, wait a second, this is abnormal, not normal. And so that's what it comes down for me. Like, am I going to be able to sleep at night knowing this? And I'll give you a good example. Like, just like we had an opportunity. We were going to relocate our office that's out in the central part of the state. And we went through the process. We started gathering options, and we're starting to look at things. And my vice president actually came to me and said, why are you doing this now? And through that whole process of trying to find locations, trying to get the right fit and do all these things, I was losing sleep. And literally, she said this to me on a Tuesday, and that Tuesday night I hadn't slept that well in probably months, because of the fact that it was like this burden was lifted off of me. And so that to me is my gauge, like if I'm going through a decision, if I'm not sleeping, then I'm either overthinking it or it's not the right thing to do. And so I kind of look at it that way. And so I'll ask you, through that whole process, how did you sleep?
Horrible, I guess, like it was, it weighed on me because, what I was afraid of is, as you become successful and things start to work out for you financially and just in general, I think there's the danger of being complacent. And that's what I was worried about. I was worried that, am I being complacent here? Am I just like, I'm happy where I'm at, comfortable. I don't ever want to be comfortable. I believe I want to keep growing. I want to keep growing mentally, business-wise, the business in a physical sense, growing the business. And I was just worried that by making that decision, I was kind of giving in and being comfortable. And I think once I got over it and kind of said to myself that that's not what it is. These are times that we've never really faced before. I joked with my daughter who's off to college. I said, boy, it really sucks living through history, because she's supposed to get the college experience and she's stuck in her apartment doing everything online. I said, well, it sucks being stuck in history. And I guess that's kind of where I was at. I was like, you know what? It's just we're in the middle of history. Like, how do you judge what's going on here? And I think that once I made the decision and I had then, you worry about the phone call. You got to call the landlord and tell him that you're going to back out of it, and you worry about the guy that you were going to buy it from. And, there was maybe some financial side of it that you hate losing anything, but at the same time, it wasn't even that. It was more like maybe the reputation. We have a reputation of building and growing things fast, and it's like, well, now we're kind of going back on that. But after I made the decision, to your point, yeah, I slept totally better. I was like, you know what, it was the right decision. And then I'm faced with the issue of, okay, so how do you talk to your employees who, for this, a lot of what we try to do is build career positions for our employees. So one of the ways we do that is we open more stores, and it creates, more opportunities for management. And so how do you take that and get the message across to them that they're still in the right spot, to grow with the company? And my thought was, look, we're going to go ahead and kind of go back to the gym, right? We're going to work on our systems that got us here in place, because as we grow, systems always change. So let's make sure our systems are really on point. And then let's work on our mid-level managers, the guys that maybe as we grow usually get lost in the shuffle because we're growing so fast that, we look around who can be the next system manager, and we give a guy the responsibility, but maybe he's really not trained for it. Right? Like, we just kind of forced them into the position. So what we did was said, let's spend time with these mid-level managers now. So my thought is, like 1987 in the on Wall Street, like 2008 with the home building, a lot of great wealth was built out of that, and in the recovery. So my real honest opinion with the restaurants is, when this is all over, it's going to be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the restaurateurs to really be able to negotiate better leases, to open stores faster than ever before. But we have to be doing the right things right now to be able to do that. So that's where a lot of my focus has shifted. And I think once I got that mentality, yes, I finally sleep better, to answer your question.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I think too, I think you're absolutely right. From the business perspective, I know I'm trying to get our company into a growth mindset. And like you said, you focused on systems, you focused on your people, and those are the first two things that you have to do so that you can be in a position to grow. And that's what I've learned is, we had 2 years ago, we started bringing interns, and we were going that route, and it worked out well. It was good. We had some very good, very qualified kids, but admittedly they were kids, and so we took a look at it and said, okay, we're not really preparing these kids for the position that we need them to be in, so we developed what we called Atlas University, and so pulling that through, and it's just little training, it's like hour training sessions every week, and let's talk about this, let's build on this, what do you have questions, and if there are opportunities that we can really help you understand what it is that we want you to do, great. And as a result of that, we've brought on our intern from last year. She's with us full time, and that's really, that's nothing, I'll be honest, that's not rocket science. That's what a lot of agencies do. But to your point, and what you did, you recognize that you need to work on those things. And if you don't have the infrastructure in place, you can't grow. Especially to your point, you're right. Coming out of this, there's going to be, people are going to be in full-on Autobahn road, lanes and just flying. And those are the ones that take the time to make sure that they've got the infrastructure, they've got the training set up, they've got the right people, so I commend you for that, because that's really what has to happen through this, as well as, going back to what we talked about earlier, investing in your business and telling the stories and marketing and doing those things so that people are making the decisions to hire people and move in that direction. So yeah, it's all of these things come together, especially in a global situation like we're in.
Yeah, it really does. And I think that's the kind of things that, most of the times in business, you can go back to something and be like, okay, I can work through this because I worked through this before, or somebody in your network that's gone through something similar. But that's the thing that's been interesting during this, is none of us have gone through what we're going through. So, you know, just having the conversations. And I think, you know, in the beginning of March and April, there were so many conversations, all the marketing for like help for businesses was all around COVID, you know, everything. It was, you know, understanding what's going on with COVID, how do you market, how to get the PPP loans and all that. Everything was like you know, there were Zoom calls for everything and all kind of webinars and everything else. And I think to a certain point, it's kind of stopped a little bit, you know, like you're seeing, don't you think to a certain point, like it's not as heavy as it was, but there's still a need for the conversation that we're having right now. You know, that's where I think, you know, most of my conversations, you know, just being candidly on the podcast lately with guests, you know, we have a quick 5-minute conversation about COVID, but I think, you know, there's so much more and different layers to it that I think that it takes a point where, you know, maybe 8 months into this thing like we are now, that we're actually looking at it and be like, well, where does it go from here? You know, and that's what we're talking about. And I think it's important to know that you can't be comfortable with it. You can't put your business on hold. And I keep going back to that, but it just struck a nerve with me, because there's a certain point where I felt like maybe that's what I was close to doing, was going on hold. And I never do that. But then I think the other part of it is, you know, like I was saying, you're in a different mindset when every time your phone rings, it's one of your employees saying they think, you know, oh, I was with my aunt's cousins yesterday and they have it. And the next person calls, my roommate has it. And then it's like, oh my gosh, like, what do you do when you're just getting bombarded with, you know, I remember the end of June, right around 4th of July, every phone call that came through my phone was somebody saying they think that they had it. So it's like, what do you do? But now it seems like, you know, right now we're in a different, you know, we're in like kind of a slope where we can kind of focus on the business right now and not worry about the outside stuff or what's going on.
Yeah, and I think to that point, you know, business owners are also striving and working and driving to get to the way things were back in February and early March.
Yeah.
You know, I know just this week, I actually had my first 2 lunch meetings in 6 months. And that was the very first thing that we talked about. Like, man, it's so great to sit across the table from you and talk, you know, versus sitting in front of your computer. So I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think it's to the point now where people are like, okay, you know, I know my parents are older, you know, and they're in good health, thankfully, and those type of things. But, you know, we've had conversations where, you know, it's like, look, if we haven't been exposed to it, and I'm certain that we have, it's okay. By this point in time, either we have been exposed to it or we haven't, but it's time to move on. And I'm certainly not saying, you know, that don't be safe, don't be smart, but at the same time, from a business perspective, you know, it certainly is, it's time to start talking about what's next, what's the post-COVID world look like, and how are we going to structure that? Because, you know, Zoom and Teams and Google, all these other things are fantastic technology, but there's absolutely nothing can replace sitting across the table and having a conversation with somebody.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You know.
Yeah, I know for me personally, one of the things that happened just this week was, you know, before we had in-person meetings, which would be similar to what you're talking about, actually being able to have somebody across the table. And now we're doing these Zoom calls with, you know, 30 different managers, and they're just insane. You know, like some guys aren't working right now. Some guys are in a car. It's like, you know, how many roles can you have, especially, I guess, in my industry, you know, when somebody's not working, like, is it fair to say to them, like, you know, they're off right then, like, you have to be sitting at a computer, like, you know, but they're in their car, and it's just crazy. And I think one of the things that we would do really well is quarterly, we would go over our goals, you know, and at the meetings. And what got lost in this was the structure of how we would have meetings has kind of got lost. A lot of times our meetings over the last 8 months have been kind of like, well, what do we get, COVID procedures, and next time more COVID procedures, and making sure, here's the new state laws or mandates, so how do you work with those? And that's, that's what's replaced, like the structure of these are the type of meetings. This is what we had a meeting, like January's meetings usually X, and March's would be X. And then we always knew what we were going to talk about, but they've been shifted. So my point is, I saw my 2020 goals for the company popped up on my email, and I'm looking through them, and I'm like, man, F COVID. Like it just was, you might as well just burn a sheet of paper that the goals were written on, and then the more I thought about it over the last day or so, I was like, I wonder if, are there some on there that maybe we could put back out? Can we say, hey, we're not going to be able to accomplish these 30 goals, and that's okay. But can we maybe save 5 of them, or can we complete 5 of them by the end of the year? Can we complete 7 or 10 of them by the end of the year? Like, where can we almost start over? Like kind of what you're saying is, okay, like grab a new frame, put it behind you, and just start fresh with what's going on, at least for now. I mean, everyone's talking about a second spike. We haven't seen anything yet. I mean, who knows? But right now, it seems like it might be a good position to kind of just refocus and re-energize.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And you mentioned something earlier that I find that within Atlas Marketing, we're spending a lot of time talking about is the mental health. Sure. Everybody's working from home. I track an employee's time and saying, look, there's no reason for you to be killing yourself and working 14 hours a day. It's not benefiting you. And it's funny because I actually had one of my senior people said, I've never had working in this industry in 20 years, I've never had a boss actually say to me, you're working too much. But I think at this point in time, you owe it to your team, your employees, your staff, whatever it is, to actually think about what's in their best interest. Because, yes, there are, like we talked about earlier, there are an amazing amount of people that are unemployed that can do the job, but that investment of bringing on a new person, you've got to train them. You're gonna, so it takes anywhere from 6 months to a year to get them up to where you want them to be. And I'd rather make sure that the people that are already on my team are comfortable and aren't, mentally beating themselves up, so that they're here longer. So it becomes more of that aspect. I mean, we talked about the structure and the process, and I couldn't agree more with you. But to me, the biggest thing right now is really making sure that everybody's mentally, working at a capacity that is not, overburdening them in that regard from a mental perspective.
I think that's a great point. I know we ran into where, restaurant workers were quote unquote essential workers. There was no sit at home. They were on the front line every day, and a lot of people, they turned to pickup and delivery, and they really turned to pizza. We were fortunate that in March, April, and May, that was one of the first industries. We're built for pickup and delivery. We're not a burger joint. We're built for, last 60 years, Domino's being the forerunner that, yes, you can get pizza delivery, and if you're lucky, maybe you can get Chinese delivery, but people know that you can get pizza delivered. Yeah. So we went from, sure, we lost the bar and we lost sales there, from the alcohol and the dine-in, but our food sales actually went up. So we had more food sales than normal, but we didn't have overall sales, if that makes sense. We were still down overall, but our food sales went up. So what I'm saying is our workers actually went from working at one pace to actually working harder in the kitchen because they're actually producing more food, but the store is not seeing the overall revenue. So it's like, well, how do you make sure that your employees are, like you're saying, mentally fit still? And how do you make sure that they feel appreciated? Because, the store's not taking in as much money as it was, but they are working harder than what they were pre-COVID, and we came with a a really hard decision. We went through it March, April, May, and then June, and we were just like trying to see where we were going to be, because the first thing is you got to make sure you're going to make it out of this. I think there were some businesses who were just worried, like, is this going to kill everything that I worked so hard for? So once we knew that we're going to be okay, that's when we went back and said, okay, we're going to give all the managers a raise, like across the board. And I think, in the restaurant industry, I don't think there was that many people that really were doing that, and maybe they did a little bit with maybe they were maybe a little fancy with the PPP money and spreading that around a little bit, but that goes away after 8 weeks. This was more, or 24 weeks, I guess, once they change the rules again. But anyway, I think this was like a long lasting, we said, how can we let them know that, we're in it with them? And that's what we're trying to do, is just, talk to them. And I think that's where a lot of different approach, talking to our managers, say, make sure you're talking to your cooks, and really, let's try to bring on more help now, because that was the other thing. They did work through those 4 months that were crazy. Let's bring on some more help, and let's raise our labor up a little bit and try and give everybody a little bit of a breather. And we've tried those different things. It seems like, it's just making sure that you're checking in on your employees and making sure that they're in the right mind frame is so important during what's going on. And I think you brought up a great point there.
Yeah. I know one of the other things too that we've tried to do, we've tried to limit our internal video calls, video meetings, just because, I've been on meetings in the past couple of months where, it's been 3 or 4 hours sitting in front of my computer, and that wears on you, and admittedly, it's not like I'm out pounding nails or pile driving or, building a fence. So I get that. But at the same time, you also try to have to give your employees and that mental capacity to take a break and do those things. So that's one of the things that we've tried to do. And then we talk about it once a week. Where's your mental state? Are you getting out? Are you getting out? Are you getting away from your computer? Or, like, if you have the opportunity to work outside, do it. Who cares? Even if you're away from Wi-Fi for an hour or two, the world's going to keep spinning. So it's okay. Trying to get people to understand that, you can still work, but you don't have to, kill yourself to do this. And I think that's a big push that I'm seeing through this.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I know that, I think the office workers, you're right. There's a different set of things that are going on. And one of them is, the fatigue of, sitting at home. And, at first everybody thought it was awesome, right? They're like, I don't have to wear pants to work today. You guys got a shirt on them at the meeting. But the reality of it is, you're right. It's like, they want to feel like they're doing their job. So it's real easy to sit there at the desk and you look over and you're like, man, it's 6:30. Like, I started at 7 this morning. I didn't even realize that, geez, I'm here all day. And it's like, then your day is gone. And it's the same day over and over, because at least the office, you get to see the certain people that maybe you didn't even know you liked, but you do appreciate the conversation. And I think that's what's been tough too, is not having the human interaction that we're used to as well.
Yes. Yeah. I call it the groundhog syndrome, because I just feel like Bill Murray, constantly same thing, hit the remote or hit the alarm, go do my thing, get to work, do this, do that. But yeah, I think a lot of people, a lot of business owners, people in general are at least acknowledging it and are working through it together. And I think that's important too.
I agree. Chris, where can people find you if they want to get more of you, if they want to know more about you? Where can they find you? You mentioned you have your podcast as well. So where can they find that at?
Yeah. So, you first stop, you can go to Atlas Marketing. It's atlasstories.com. And we did that because it's, we tell stories. So Atlas and stories together. So atlasstories.com is our company website. They can connect with me on LinkedIn. I believe the LinkedIn is also Atlas Stories. No, it's just Atlas Stories. or you can search me out there. I'm also the co-host of the Building PA podcast, which you can find us at buildingpapodcast.com with my co-host John O'Brien. And listen to us there. We talk about the construction industry specific to Pennsylvania, and it's going very well. Other than that, they can email me at chris@atlasstories.com.
Thanks so much, Chris. And then we have the last part of the show here, the 7 rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Okay. Best seminar or teaching you've ever been to?
I went to the AGC convention, Associated General Contractors. They did a really good conversation on lean building.
Favorite item you bought recently under $100?
Oh, I bought a holder for my iPad, so then I can see it off to the side.
Name an idol or hero of yours that you've met in person.
This isn't going to be rapid. I got to think about that one. What on the Building PA podcast, we interviewed Rocky Blyer, so that was pretty cool. I was at his last home game, so
that's
that was
awesome.
Cool.
My dad always talks about how he saw him speak years ago, and he said he was one of the best speakers he ever saw.
He's fantastic. I've heard him speak so many times, but getting the chance to talk to him one-on-one about stuff, that was cool. That was cool.
Favorite book to give as a gift?
Oh, I just finished it, and I have it right here on my desk. It's called Ask for More: 10 Questions to Negotiate Anything. And I've been giving this out to a lot of people lately, and it's more than just negotiations. It's how to actually steer conversations.
Something you do every morning before you brush your teeth?
Can I say go to the bathroom?
We get that answer.
I'm sure.
Your personal mantra or favorite quote?
My favorite quote is simple, and I have it right over here on my desk. It says, "If you're going through hell, keep going," from Winston Churchill.
Place you go to decompress and reset?
I would say the gym, but lately it's been my my basement where I'm working out.
Very good. Chris, thanks so much for being on. We really appreciated your time today. Thank you very much.
Nick, this was great. Thank you. I enjoyed it.